I'd like to call the July 17th evening session of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners to order and welcome those who are here in person. It's good to see so many people here and welcome you. We also want to welcome those who are watching on the live stream. So welcome to you on YouTube watching us. Also wanted to make a couple of announcements. One is Commissioner Tony Braswell, who had hoped to be here this evening, was delayed, and he will not be here with us this evening. And also for those who weren't here or didn't watch the morning session, we open up with a prayer and a pledge for that, so we will not do that again at the evening meeting. And then also we did have a couple of board appointments that we had more applicants than we had positions open. So we did have those boards. They were a Social Services Board, and Angelique Leggett was appointed to that board. And then also on the Veteran Services Advisory Board, there were 2 positions, and we had Kevin Wilson and Jorge Mejias Diaz was appointed to that board. So with that, we will move on to the regular items on the agenda, and we have a motion. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, under public hearings, item number 3, rezoning request, case number 23-13 has been withdrawn. With that exception, I'll make a motion we approve the agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Agenda is approved. Next up, we have public comments. We do have a couple of scheduled speakers for the public comment. First up is Johnston County's favorite elected official, our Register of Deeds, Craig Olive. He's here to recognize Boy Scout Troop 124 of Clayton for their community service.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board of the county commissioners. I would like to take this time out to recognize a special group. Every year, the Register of Deeds, along with the town of Smithfield, puts on a shred event. And this scout troop 124 from Horn United Methodist Church in Clayton has always been there to help out. And my mission is to help prevent any type of identity fraud, and so they are big helpers in this effort. And tonight we have the scout leader, Anthony Westmoreland. We also have Assistant Scoutmaster Paul Paparon. I'm sorry. We also have Cameron Taylor as a member, and the rest of the troop here. I want to congratulate y'all and bring recognition to y'all of what you do for us and the citizens of Johnston County. Y'all want your picture made?
Sure, let's
take a picture behind y'all.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the best way to, I was looking over our PO to see what, what's the best way to do a picture? Okay.
Can you take a picture for us? Just stand right in front.
They're all solid. All right, next up we have Mr. Aaron Penny with Illumis, who is here to give us an update on some things they've got going on in Johnston County. Mr. Penny.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Johnston County Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Aaron Penny. I'm with Lumos Fiber. On May 24th, Our company announced our intent to invest more than $55 million between Johnston and Harnett counties to build a state-of-the-art fiber optic internet infrastructure. This investment comes as our opportunity came to us to see where we could expand infrastructure and serve the communities who need additional options for fiber and broadband infrastructure. This is a private investment from our company and is not associated with the grant, which we so thankfully received your support for several months back. As you may be aware, that grant is still in contempt right now, and those decisions or awards has not been provided to date. And so there is still opportunity where we may be eligible for a grant to serve even more unserved households in the county. For that, we will continue to keep you updated with any findings that we receive. But we did want to come to you tonight and just share the great news that we had to invest in your community, and we are looking forward to serving tens of thousands of residents and small businesses throughout Johnston County with our investment in our infrastructure.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments?
We thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, next up, we have our regular public comment, and then this is for items that are not on the agenda. So I want to just kind of make sure, is there anybody here to speak on any items that are not on the agenda? I think we probably have several here for the public hearing, but anything? You here for, okay, all right. So I'm going to forego the traditional public comments, and no one here for public comment. And I do not think we've received any emails since our morning session. So with that, we will move on to the public hearing. We have a couple of rezoning and rezoning conditional uses, and I will move on to that. We will open the rezoning hearing for case 2311, and I will call on our planning director, Braston Newton, to come forward and present that for us.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Board, good evening to you as well. Our first case this evening is case 23-11. This is a petition to rezone 117.03 acres located at 2909 and 2825 Powhatan Road in the Clayton Township from agricultural residential to industrial 1. The owner and applicant are Nova Nordisk Pharmaceutical Industries, LP. The existing land use, currently the property is vacant or used for agricultural and residential purposes. Surrounding zoning and land uses are agricultural and residential use for such purposes, and I-1, and this would include the Novo's existing pharmaceutical manufacturing site, and also surrounding properties are, most of the surrounding properties are in the town of Clayton's ETJ as well. Traffic concerns along Powhatan Road. There are no traffic counts currently available for Powhatan Road, but Powhatan Road does not appear on our CTP as needing improvement. And this property is located in a primary growth area in accordance with a currently adopted land use plan. Would be glad to answer any questions you may have, and just to remind you, this is just simply a general use district rezoning.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Newton? All right, hearing none. Next, I would ask if the applicant was present and have anything they would wish to say. All right. Anybody else here with any public comments on this item? All right, seeing no one coming forward, I will close the public discussion portion of the hearing and call on Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board recommendations.
Yes, sir. As it relates to rezoning case 23-11, the request to rezone said properties from agricultural residential to industrial 1. Planning board does recommend approval and offers for your consideration a resolution of statement of consistency.
All right, any questions for Mr. Newton? All right, thank you, Mr. Newton. I will now close the hearing and turn it over to the board for additional deliberation or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve the rezoning request.
I second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, and all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion is approved. All right. Next up, we have a conditional zoning district hearing, case 2312. I will now open that public hearing, and I will again call on Mr. Newton to come forward and present information on the case. Thank you.
Sir, case 23-12 is a petition to rezone 2.6 acres located at 8957 NC Highway 96 South in the Meta Township from general business to industrial to conditional zoning. The owner is Bull and Oak Properties. Applicant is Richards Property Group, LLC. The conditional zoning request the specific uses to allow for a metal fabrication operation at the site. As previously stated, the condition where the current land use or zoning is general business and the property is currently not in use. These surrounding land uses are agriculture and residential and used for such purposes, and there's a elementary middle school nearby. Also, there are various businesses, retail, convenience, restaurant, and those are all zoned general business. Property is located on Highway 96, and this does see a traffic count of about 1,600 vehicles per day. This is a 2021 count. And NC 96 South does appear on the CTP, or our Comprehensive Transportation Plan, as an existing major thoroughfare with adequate design capacity. The property is located in a secondary growth area as per our currently adopted land use plan. We have provided for you a list of conditions, which are numbering 10, and you will see those on, I believe, beginning on page 13 and ending on page 14 of your agenda.
All right, yeah, I think you all have those in your packet at your seat as well, those 10 conditions. All right. Any questions for Mr. Newton at this time? All right, here's no questions. I will now ask for the applicant to come forward and present the request and the proposed conditions.
Sir. I'm Terry Richards. Richards Welding and Metal Fabrication is the shop we intend to put in there.
If you don't mind, would you state your address?
Oh,
sorry, I forgot
sorry.
to
My
say
name is
that.
Terry Richards, 1111 Edenburg Keep Drive, Knightdale, North Carolina. Currently, we're located in Wendell, North Carolina, very close to Johnston County. We have like 2 buildings totaling 10,000 square feet there. We're trying to move these buildings, which total about 28,000 square feet. It's a very similar layout, residential on one side, industrial on the other. In Wendell, we're right by the Siemens factory. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you go down that road, literally one side of the road is residential and the other side is industrial too, which is exactly what we're asking for here. We have about 15, 17 employees that report to the shop every day. That will expand slightly over here at this location, given that we get the approval. We have another group that is the steel erectors that are out in the field, which we have another about 25 employees. So we primarily focus on the multifamily industry up and down the East Coast, Florida to Baltimore, doing multifamily like stairs and rails. As far as everything that we do is inside of the building, except for the storage of the steel, which some will be stored outside for obvious reasons. It's very hard to store as much steel as we process every day. And then, as I said in the last meeting, it's about 1 truck in and out every day. We have 1 truck delivering product and 1 truck bringing raw materials in of rigs, 18-wheelers. But that's pretty much. It's a pretty simple operation. We do. I know there was, some noise issues, but we have never had a complaint for noise ever in the current location. And, but it's pretty simple.
Are there any materials stored outside, or are they all inside?
No, raw material will be stored outside. That's correct. Yep. for a period of time, but like as it's produced, it gets stored inside. You know, as we start to fabricate it and
Right.
cut it, because when it comes as mill scale, it can be the outside will protect it. It can be protected outside with the mill scale, but once it's cut, it's raw steel. You can't. We put it back. We put it indoors.
All right, any questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Richards?
Yes, sir.
This calls for a Class C vegetation buffer. You okay with that?
Please, I don't understand what that is, sir.
Well, it's a little more, I guess, intense than their typical.
Okay. Class C.
3 large trees, 4 small trees, 12 shrubs every 100 linear feet, and can take advantage of existing vegetation.
Well, I reckon that's there right now. It's surrounded by trees all the way around it, except for one side, which would be the
Towards the restaurant?
no, sir. The sweet potato farm right there that does the sorting. They do the sorting. That would be the only side, but there would be no way to do it. There would be no way because of the way that the property line and the building is. The building is right butted to the property line. There would be no way to plant trees or any type of shrubs on that side.
Any other questions?
There's no material, sorry, there's no material stored on that side, that's just the building, correct?
That's right. That's right. You would the side that you would see from the Dollar General up there that and the restaurant, you would see the back side of the building. That's correct. Yep. But we intend to take the existing building, and we've had structural engineers come by and reuse the existing building. We're not going to put really the only thing that we would probably come to permit would be to tap into the water, and we would want some type of a little bit more rock and blacktop, but that's it. There's a new roof needed on one of the buildings. We're going to replace the roof and just work with what we got.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this case, please come forward. All right, seeing no one, I will now close the public discussion portion of the hearing and call on Mr. Newton to come forward and summarize and present the planning board's recommendations.
Yes, sir. As for case 23-12 on the rezoning of property, 2.6 acres located at 8957 NC 96 South, from general business to industrial to conditional zoning. Planning board does provide a recommendation of approval, recommendation for approval, offers for your consideration, not only the 10 conditions, but also a resolution and statement of consistency.
All right, any questions for Mr. Newton? I did have one regarding Class C buffer. The applicant mentioned that he didn't think it was possible to do it on one side. It seems like there's vegetation, and it says may use existing vegetation, so I was going to get your thoughts on that one side. I wasn't sure which direction the sweet potato farm was. So.
If the vegetation is on the subject property and will satisfy the intent of the buffer, we will allow that.
Yeah.
However, once again, buffer is there to do twofold, is one, a visual buffer, and to provide noise attenuation if possible. So we would evaluate that.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Newton?
It looks like there's almost a zero property line on that side next to the sweet potato concern. Would that be grandfathered?
That is very likely. We would have to look at alternatives, but yes, sir.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Newton, and I would ask the applicant to come forward one more time. And I know you have 10 conditions, one of which is this Class C buffer, and I just wanted to make sure, just to make sure you were agreeable to all 10. And Mr. Newton, does he have those 10 in front of him to take a quick look at? It should be the same ones that from the planning board, so there shouldn't be anything new there. I just want to make sure you got a chance to look at it one more time.
Yeah, the Class C buffer that as I said, that may be an issue on that one side. I don't know any way to do it, and I will. Okay, I don't know if it's going to be possible. You know, the soil is no good there. There's no way to really grow trees. The fertilizer plant or whatever Are you familiar with the, like, there's no way that you could plant vegetation on this soil?
So I would just say, and I'll defer to our planning director, there's some of this will be at the discretion of our planning department as they go out and make sure to see what buffers
Okay.
are required.
Yeah, I mean, we could satisfy with a buffer. I think whether it's a 6-foot or 8-foot fence or vegetation, whatever it may be, I would not be opposed to it. But I just don't think vegetation's,
Going to work.
yeah, going to
Okay.
work. It's a swamp around it.
Okay. All right, and so you
Yes,
are
sir.
okay with those?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. All right, thank you for that. And then finally, I will now close the hearing and turn it over to the board for their consideration, discussion, and/or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the statement of consistency resolution as presented in the agenda packet and approve the rezoning request with the conditions as discussed here for case 2312.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, thank you. And as we had stated earlier, case 2313 has been withdrawn. So we will move on to a public hearing for road closure on Velt Lane. I will now open the public hearing and call on Mr. Newton to come forward one more time to present the purpose of the hearing.
Yes, sir, thank you. If you'll recall, at a previous meeting, we did review this. There's a request to close a public right-of-way and to abandon that public right-of-way. This is Velt Lane, and this is located off of NC 42 highway between Cornwallis Road and Swift Creek, or 40 and Swift Creek. The public right-of-way is part of a development known as Four Meadows, which is a mixed-use development. This is the development where the Tractor Supply is currently built and in operation, and there are single-family dwellings to the rear. The Velt Lane is situated in an area where there are properties that have been purchased and are currently or under contract or have been purchased, one or the other, for development for a retail use. And they need Velt Lane to be closed. The only impact or only to those properties, those three properties you see on screen, and these are all under common ownership, as witnessed by the request letter that was provided to you dated May 19th, 2023. So in accordance with General Statute 153A-241, the county may permanently close any public right-of-way within the county and not within a city. And in doing so, you have to do, there's a couple of steps. The first is, one, receive that request. Second is declare intent to close, and you did this on June 5th of 2023. Your last step here is to conduct a public hearing and then potentially adopt or consider adoption of the order to close the public right-of-way. Be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Newton?
Does the DOT have final say on this?
Not necessarily. We will, obviously, we have to inform them along with a few other agencies as well, but no, sir.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this issue? All right, and Madam Clerk, did we have any emails? Okay, no emails on this. All right, so I will now close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for their wishes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to concur with the petitioner's request to permanently close Velt Lane.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to permanently close Velt Lane. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have a public hearing on Envision Johnston 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. I will now open the public hearing for that And Mr. Newton, I think this is the last time I'm going to ask you to present information and overview on the draft of our plan.
Yes, sir, we hope so. So what you have before you and what has been released to the public in draft form dating back to late July, early August of last year is Envision Johnston 2040, which is the efforts of a tremendous group of people throughout the county. So this board appointed a steering committee group some time ago, and they worked diligently, and I'd like to publicly thank them for their efforts. They did a tremendous job and were very vested in the development of this plan, and we do appreciate that. In addition to that, I do want to acknowledge our consultant team, which were various, but our primary consultants were Meg Nealon with Nealon Planning, and Mr. Ben Hitchings with Green Heron Planning, and Mr. Hitchings is with us this evening. In addition, I'd like to thank Planning Board. Planning Board put in a tremendous amount of effort and input into this plan as well. And finally, and not the least of which, I'd like to thank this board for your efforts. I know we've toiled over this for the last number of months, and you've probably read and considered this plan until your eyes have bled. So we do appreciate your efforts and your time and consideration. It's an extremely important tool for us here in the county to ensure that we create and continue a sustainable community here. I would be glad to answer any questions you may have. There have not been any substantial changes to the plan. There has been some language changes, specifically just to individual phrases or words, which just would lend more to, instead of, an example would be, instead of encourage, we would require. That's the type of language, but there's been no substantive changes since release to the public.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Newton?
Just a point of clarification, this is the opening volley, if you will. Any substantive changes to the ordinance will be driven by this, but when it starts affecting people and what they do, it'll really be those ordinances and not this plan. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So your land use plan is actually a guidance document. It is to inform your decisions with regard to land use matters. That includes regulation or land use actions with regard to particular properties or particular communities within the county. But you're exactly right. It will be a point of reference. But the ordinance, what we term as our Unified Development Ordinance, that will be our next beast to slay here.
Yeah, I would just tend to think there's really a couple extra pieces. We've got the land use side of it, but we also have our sewer allocation policy and then our utilities CIP that we have to work with to plan to coordinate all this to make it all work like it should. So
That is correct.
all right, any other questions, comments from the board? If not, I'm going to turn it over to the audience to come forward with their comments. I would ask that you come forward if you would state your name, and you don't have to give me your address, but if you've got your town or township, that would be sufficient. So if you would, please come forward as you feel, kind of like church, as you feel led, come forward. Somebody's got to be first.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we don't want anybody to go home and say, I wish I'd have said so-and-so.
Yeah, that's right. Good evening, Ms. Stovall.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Martha Stovall. I reside out in the county. I'm near Wilson's Mills. Is that sufficient?
That's good enough.
When I drive around Johnston County, what do I see happening? Great strategic planning? No. Town and county coordination? No. A cohesive vision? No. What I have seen in the last 15 to 20 years can best be described as hodgepodge, discombobulation, mismatched, a jumble of residential, commercial, retail, businesses, and farming communities scattered around like Lego toys at the end of the day at preschool. This county desperately needs congruent vision and leaders that understand the importance of planning for the future. I've traveled a good bit around the United States, and many areas have managed to create unity, compatibility, and beauty. Many municipalities have successfully balanced design, jobs, growth, urban, and rural. I believe Johnston County can obtain these things too with proper planning. We can have scenic beauty, successful and happy citizens, and a thriving county. But we must understand the requirements of capitalizing on our local strengths instead of wiping them out. One prime example of this is clear cutting. Having no or very low standards for developers, as we currently have, means continued deterioration of our quality of life for everyone, loss of our county's identity, questionable infrastructure, and an uncertain future. Communities grow by chance or they grow by choice. Let's stop taking the blunderbuss approach. Let's instead plan and protect our assets and have high standards for every project countywide. We need quality development over quantity. I hope we can do better for the next generation of Johnston citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stovall. Mr. Padilla?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joe Padilla, and I'm a vice president with Smith Douglas Homes. Our local office is over in Apex. Smith Douglas has 3 active neighborhoods in Johnston County. We have a community in Clayton, we have 2 in Four Oaks, and we've delivered more than 300 new homes in the county over the past 5 years. Our target buyers are the families who serve as the backbone of Johnston County's workforce. Your teachers, nurses, police officers, as well as workers in the retail and industrial sectors. Now, your land use plan says that more than 14,000 Johnston County workers are in one of these last 2 categories, retail or industrial. And typically, most of those jobs will pay between 80 and 100% of the county's area median income. For these workers to be able to participate in the American dream of homeownership, the county needs a significantly greater supply of housing under $300,000, which, as your study indicates, is quickly disappearing. It is critical, and your study points this out in a number of places, that Johnston County provide more opportunities for diverse housing product, including townhomes, duplexes, cottage homes, and the like. Well, we call that, as most planners do, missing middle housing. And missing middle housing types are not only essential to accommodate your growing workforce, they're also essential to accommodate the needs of an aging population. They provide smaller, more moved-down homes with single-level living. For that reason, we do support many of the land use recommendations in the plan, particularly LU4. That recommends that the county support more intense residential development and a broader range of housing types. But while it does make sense to cluster many of these housing types around the municipalities, the county does need to identify more locations in unincorporated geography where infrastructure exists or can be expanded to accommodate mid-density housing. Unfortunately, large areas of eastern Johnston County, close to I-40, are still designated in this plan as low-density residential. And we recognize that's largely due to a lack of sewer infrastructure and capacity, but the result is a highly inefficient use of land in close proximity to the Triangle's largest employment centers. So we encourage you to continue to expedite future sewer capacity investments in this and other areas of the county so that growth can occur in a more compact, walkable fashion that preserves meaningful open space. The way this plan is currently drafted, quite frankly, it simply does not provide sufficient opportunities for housing, particularly for the county's growing workforce. And while we all support the recommendation to produce and promote more conservation design neighborhoods, that also requires sewer, and that also requires smaller lots, which can't be done on septic. So again, a lot of this plan, a lot of the best recommendations of this plan are critical that sewer be expanded as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. Ultimately, Johnston County's future growth patterns will be driven by the availability of water and sewer service, and we hope this board will invest in the infrastructure that's needed to provide attainable housing for the families that are the backbone of the community's workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Good evening, Mr. Caldwell.
Good evening, Commissioners. Adam Caldwell, big town of Benson. I'd like to draw your attention. Well, first off, let me say kudos to the development of this plan. I was on the planning board about 11 months ago, and it was adopted. So I'm glad this day has come for the commissioners, and a lot of hard work's been put into this. And I'd like to draw your attention to Section 4, and this is on page 100, A Tale of Two Counties. In 1970, Wake County had about as many as Johnston County does today, about 225,000. Just 10 years later, by 1980, Wake County had added another 70,000 residents, and in that process, it experienced a 33% reduction in the number of farms and a 30% reduction in the amount of land in farms. Wake County did take some steps to address this, but agriculture activity continued to decline in the face of rapid growth. If Johnston County wants a different outcome, it's going to need to do something different and go beyond these basic strategies. I think there's a number of recommendations outlined in that plan that would do that, and so I'm very hopeful that your board will take those recommendations and turn them into ordinances, because without those, this plan's really just a plan that can sit on a shelf, and really the teeth behind that would be the ordinances. Not news to any of you, the amount of farmland that is lost in North Carolina, number 2 in the whole nation, and Johnston County is unfortunately number 1 county in the state for that, and among 19 of the top counties in the whole nation. So appreciate the efforts you all did in the budget with additional funds to Triangle Land Conservancy. I really hope this plan is the first step in kind of moving forward, because we're at a crossroads and trying to plan where we want to go the next 20 years. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Good evening, Mr. Stovall.
Afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Stovall. I'm from the Wilson Mills area. As some of you know, I've been following the land use issues in the county for a number of years now. I tried to attend as many of the committee meetings as I could and offered feedback at the afforded public workshops that we had. I just wanted to say that the plan we had come out of the committee process, I thought was a good plan. I'd also like to note it was very much in the spirit of the 2008 plan that predated it. So the public feedback really hasn't changed a whole lot, and I'm here to encourage the board to hopefully adopt the plan and remind you that this is just going to be the first step. The county must follow up with ordinances to facilitate the spirit of the plan. Land use is the number 1 issue facing our county, and the action on it is very much time sensitive. We cannot afford to have the new plan collect dust on a shelf for another decade before we decide to look at it again. We must implement a plan that's going to prioritize protecting our existing communities and residents, preserve our rural areas and natural resources, and allow our vital agriculture industry to thrive outside of municipalities. I can't speak for everyone, but within my own circles, I don't know any Johnstonians that are satisfied with the current direction of growth in the county, and the feedback gathered during the committee process overwhelmingly reiterated that point. The feedback was also not simply people demanding that growth be stopped entirely. I saw very little of that in the data that I looked at from it. All the surveys and public workshops reflected citizens really saying they wanted the first priority to be protecting the quality of life of our existing residents. That cannot happen if we can incentivize new growth without regard for the finite resources and infrastructure. I don't want to see our county become a generic suburb of the Triangle. I feel like we have the potential to be a leader in our region, not just an overflow zone for Wake County, but that's going to require an active prioritization and management. Now, I've heard no one suggesting farmers be forced to farm against their will or we not build a single thing, but I do feel we have an obligation to consider issues like incompatible zoning uses, setback protections, rural school and road capacities, and what kind of growth we want to prioritize for our limited water and sewer. At the end of the day, we have to acknowledge that many studies have found that residential development doesn't pay for itself in the long run, and we're rapidly losing the unique identity and community that made Johnston County home for many of us. That our agriculture and rural interests are in many cases not selling out because they want to, but because the impacts to their livelihoods and communities have forced them to move further east outside of the county to continue to be successful and pass that legacy on to their children. It's the future generations of Johnstonians that'll be stuck holding the bill if we don't take steps today to shape how we want our county's future to look. With that, I'll leave it with Please adopt the plan, and please continue to follow through with its implementation with ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Thomas?
Lanny Thomas, Swift Creek Nursery, Cleveland Community, working with this committee to come up with some recommendations. I think that they have done a great job, and I hope you will seriously consider all of the recommendations in this plan, especially the larger lot sizes outside the urban areas. Continue to try to encourage growth closer to the urban areas. Probably restrict county sewer to businesses, save that capacity, and don't use it for residential developments anymore. And please start requiring some road improvements. Developers are just building developments, communities all over Cleveland Township, but you never see them do nothing but put a little short turning lane in to their community and stop the turning lane within 100 feet of an existing intersection, where they could have extended it very economically another 200 feet and included turn lanes like on the Grill Road, on the Cleveland Road. So let me encourage you to start requiring road improvements. And I think that would be a big help.
Could you move back towards the microphone?
And we really appreciate the property that you have purchased in Cleveland Township for a park. And I hope all of y'all are committed that just as soon as Adrian has a plan and it's ready to go to contract, that y'all will immediately put it out to contract. So have your financing figured out first. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Ms. Cassidy.
I'm Jean Cazanet from Benson. I currently serve on the planning board and on the UDO committee in Benson to redo our ordinances. So I know, for as long as I've been coming to the meetings about the land use, I do know that the ordinances are the things that have the teeth. So I not only want to tell you guys, I want to put my name in the hat to help Johnson County have some teeth on their ordinances and getting those tightened up. But I also share Adam's concern, and I think Steve Troxler came out with a statement recently about his concern for the loss of farmland in our state. And I think that our county is high on that list as well. So I applaud you for let's get this thing passed. I've been coming here forever, it seems, but I do think the ordinances matter. So I'm going to put my name in the hat.
Thank you, Ms. Cassidy.
Thank you.
All right, who's next? We still have a few over here. This time we only had one on this side, so. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right, I will, and I don't think we've had any emails. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm asking about email, I looked one up. So if there's not anyone else, is there any final comments by the commissioners?
Well, I feel like we've gotten some good feedback.
I will say that I think the feedback has been pretty consistent throughout the process from the public. So again, I think all the people that Braston had mentioned, thanks to them, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to come out tonight. And it's clear that there are a lot of folks in Johnston County who are passionate about this issue, and it is good to see people come out and be present as we're discussing this. So again, thank you for coming out and being present. So I will now close the public hearing, and I think I will turn it back over to staff. I know the staff requests that the board adopt the Envision Johnston 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Yes.
it's my understanding that we were going to have the public hearing tonight, take these comments under advisement, and vote on our next meeting.
Yes, well, that is, the staff just requested we adopt it.
Okay.
We're not taking any action on it tonight, but I didn't know if there was any summary that you had.
No, sir. You have it before you. You do have a resolution for your consideration to adopt the plan, and also has planning board's endorsement.
Okay. And so we will look forward to that at our next meeting on August the 7th.
Sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, now we have manager reports and comments. All right, any board reports or comments? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. 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 We are adjourned.